I will simply state very clearly that when you call out others that are in competition with you and agree as a group to set fees, such as minimal standard fees for an appraisal, that is called illegal price fixing. Do I have to stress it's illegal? Okay, let's not do it.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
All right, my friends, welcome back to the Appraiser Coach Podcast. It is time to address the gorilla in the room. This is a question and a comment that I see come up a lot on the social media. I'm getting direct messages from appraisers asking about this. It's coming up in our All-Star Team community online on a pretty regular basis at this point. As we get closer and closer to the inevitable UAD 3.6, I see what's happening and what I'm going to label as the UAD 3.6 panic, right? This hurricane, if you will, that is coming. Now, let me just pause here and just acknowledge the pain a little bit, because I am an active boots on the ground appraiser. I have been for 30 plus years. That's never changed. I continue to do appraisals, even though I'm very busy with my coaching side of things and my other businesses. I am still an active boots on the ground appraiser. So the UAD 3.6 to me is not just the emotion and not just the idea of this big change. This is reality for Dustin Harris. This is something that I have to deal with. I've told you on this microphone before, and I'll tell you again, I'm not stressed about the 3.6. The one of the questions, it's not the one I want to address today, but one of the questions that comes up frequently is, Dustin, what are you doing to prepare for the 3.6? And I've already told you, nothing. And I've gotten to trouble with certain individuals who have picked up the phone and called me and said, Dustin, you can't, as a mentor, as a coach, as a teacher, as a podcaster, you can't say that. And they don't say it in so many words, but that's basically what they're saying. Dustin, stop saying that. We're working our asses off here trying to get people prepared for the 3.6. And then they turn on your podcast and you say you're doing nothing to prepare. Well, folks, sorry, I say it the way it is. And the way it is I know it's coming, but there have been so many delays and so many lines in the sand and so many pushbacks and timelines moved that I'm sorry, I'm a practical guy. I'm not going to prepare for something that may or may not be the reality. Now, have I done a 3.6 report? No. Have I picked up Total and gone through their little tutorial? I played with it for about 15 seconds. Did I go appraise my own house? By the way, I'm not discouraging anybody from doing this. I think it's a great idea. I've just not done it, because to me, by the time this rolls out, and I know you're jumping on the comments and saying, well, Dustin, it's already there. I already got my first 3.6. Or I understand, folks, that this is live and happening, but it's not affecting Dustin Harris. I've never seen an order for 3.6 yet. And so my answer is, are you preparing for the 3.0? Yes, I've taken the class. I took it in Las Vegas, last fall. I sat through it, the class that Fannie Mae organized, and it was, I'm sorry, it was boring as hell. And I love the teacher, by the way. Shout out to John. You did a great job, but it's not his fault. The material is the material. And no matter what UAD 3.6 preparation class you've taken, it's dictated. The content is dictated, and it's boring as hell, and it's overwhelming, and there's a lot to it. And I understand why people are a little bit stressed. They're a little bit fearful about, what's coming. But I'm going to wait until I know what it is, and then I'm going to learn it. The best teacher is on the job training, in my opinion. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I learn by doing. So give me a 3.6 and I'll learn it at that point. Is that irresponsible? Maybe. Bring on the phone calls. I'm sure they're going to be coming. And I love you guys. These are friends that are calling, but they're saying, Dustin, you have to prepare appraisers for the 3.6. And my answer to that is why? Why am I preparing for something that may be completely different than what they're saying it's going to be? Because it's changing constantly. We're not ready as an industry. Why should I get ready as an appraiser? All right. That aside, again, bring on the hate mail, bring on the phone calls, bring on the corrective measures. Take me to the woodshed. That's not what I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about today is the other big question, and what I see as the wrong question to ask. The question is, and it stems from the fear of, let's call it double report times, right? This is going to take us longer. I'm looking at all of the things we're supposed to do for 3.6. And the big question on the table that I want to address today is, Dustin, are you going to increase your fees when it comes to 3.6? Folks, I think that question is the wrong question to ask. In fact, I'm even going to go further. And I'm going to say that the way this is being asked and sometimes even dictated is a little bit scary because it's on the edge, if not crossing over the line, of illegal. Yes, I used the word illegal. Folks, I don't think that people understand what they're asking when they, and I'm just going to use the word collude or try to collude with others. And I am seeing it constantly on Facebook, folks. And I'm sorry, I'm not a Chicken Little. To me, I'm always looking at the glass half full, but I have to warn you, folks, some of you are really stepping over the edge. And when I have gone on these forums like Facebook and professionally and kindly tried to educate and say, we need to be a little bit careful here, I've got a ton of pushback. And the pushback is not whether or not it's illegal or not illegal to ask for a collusion on prices. It's a matter of we deserve this. That's the argument. When I push back and say, hey guys, you need to be a little bit careful about how you're going about this when you're looking at potentially increasing your fees. By the way, I'm not against increasing your fees. In fact, I'm going to, in this podcast, stay tuned. I'm going to actually walk you through the process of setting fees the proper way. Okay. And it's not by getting a bunch of appraisers together to all agree to raise their prices when it comes to UAD 3.6. Folks, that is absolutely not just the wrong thing to do, but probably the illegal thing to do. And when I have kindly and gently tried to correct on Facebook, folks, I often get people pushing back and saying, well, illegal or not, this is what we're doing. I mean, they don't say it in so many words, but instead of answering the question or taking the correction, they will push back and say, well, AMCs have treated us like crap for years, and it's our time to step up, and this gives us the opportunity. Okay, what am I talking about? I think all appraisers that have spent even half a second looking at 3.6 realize that there is going to be at least a period of time when a 3.6 report is going to take longer than a 2.6 report. Folks, we are used to the 2.6 report. And consequently, as we look at the scope of work, instead of looking at it the way that we should, which is in a dollars per hour mindset, it is more in a we deserve more, we deserve better. If you're going to make us do the 3.6, then I'm going to get with all my appraiser buddies and we're going to set our fees at a minimum. Folks, be extremely careful. Okay, there is this thing called the Sherman Antitrust Act, which I'm not going to go into today because that could take 3 podcasts to really explain, and I don't know that I fully understand it. All I know is we are independent competitors, right? And when an independent competitor agrees to set minimum standard fees, that, my friends, is illegal. It's called price fixing. It is illegal. And if you don't think the DOJ watches public forums, you're crazy. Of course they do. Again, folks, this is my warning, and many of you are going to think I'm the enemy, right? Well, Dustin, are you against higher fees? Hell no. I mean, folks, I'm sorry I didn't get into appraisal because of altruism. I didn't get into appraisal because I thought it was the right thing to do for people, to help them to get loans, to help them to move through and refinance their house properly. I'm sorry, I'm in it for the money. I do this because of the money. You stop paying me today, I stop doing appraisals tomorrow. There, I said it. Okay. I'm in the appraisal world. It is my career. Now, I have a bigger why than making money. My why has to do with my freedom, my family, and I've talked about that ad nauseum here on the Appraiser Coach podcast and in my coaching. In fact, I encourage every appraiser to have a why. That figure out what your why is. Why are you here? Why are you doing what you're doing? Because that can dictate and direct every other aspect of your career and your life. So I'm not against making money. What I am fearful of is that too many appraisers do not understand that when you get on a public forum like Facebook, and I saw one, and by the way, what prompted this particular episode was just a day or two ago. I jumped on one of the appraisal forums, and the individual started out, and I'm not going to quote it directly because I don't want to single him out, but it was basically the gist of it was, and I'm looking at it in front of me now. I'm gonna be careful because again, I don't want to call him out, but it was basically, it is time, my friends, to rise up and to agree on a minimum fee that we're all going to charge for the UAD. This is our opportunity. This is our chance as an appraiser coalition, as a group, to stand up and say, we will set our prices here and we will go no lower. And frankly, the individual called appraisers out who are unwilling to do this as being traitors to the career. Now, he didn't use the T word, but he might as well have. And folks, what was even more shocking than the original post on Facebook was the dozens of comments underneath that said, "Go you, rah rah, we're behind you. It's about time somebody stood up and said this." Now, folks, I think I was one of the only voices on there to say, hold on a second. We should probably be a little bit more careful about the language that we're using here. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot more detail. Again, this is not a podcast on the Sherman Antitrust Act. I will simply state very clearly that when you call out others that are in competition with you and agree as a group to set fees, such as minimal standard fees for an appraisal, that is called illegal price fixing. Do I have to stress it's illegal? Okay, let's not do it. Now, that being said, is this an opportunity to look at our fees, to look at where we're at, to look at where we've been? I know appraisers who say, I've not raised my fees in 30 years. The appraisal fee that I accepted 30 years ago, the fee per appraisal is the same now as it was 30 years ago. Folks, don't you think it's about time that we do look at our fees? And when we get back from the break, I want to walk you through the process that I use to set fees. And this is not for me to set your fees, to collude with other appraisers. This is a business coach teaching principles of how to set your fees that will be marketable and beneficial to you, the appraiser. First, I want to pause and remind you of a great company called TrueTrax. TrueTrax is a tool, first of all, very cost effective. Secondly, will allow you to get more of your time back. In a few minutes, I'm going to teach you about dollars per hour and what that looks like on an appraisal process. And as we go through that process, I want you to think about tools like TrueTrax. TrueTrax, in the end, saves you time. When you are saved time as an independent appraiser, you are saved money. This tool does many things, amongst which is to help you to support your adjustments. Folks, that to me is huge. How many of us have gone throughout our career often making professional judgments, but without true support for those judgments. Folks, no longer do you need to do that when you have in your corner a tool like TrueTracks. Find out more by going to their website. It's kind of long, so write it down. It is truefootage.tech/tools. I'm going to say it one more time, truefootage.tech/tools. And by the way, if you use the code Appraiser Coach, capital A, capital C, no space, you will get not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but 6 full weeks, a month and a half to use it absolutely for free. Appraiser Coach at checkout. We're sponsored today, of course, by our great company, my insurance company, my E&O company, the company I rely on when I need help because of something that's going on with an appraisal that I've turned in, or that gives me the benefit of knowing that I can go to them for education, free education, by the way, that counts as CE, at least in the states that I work in, doesn't cost me any more. And on top of all of that, I get the very best price out there for the coverage that I have. Folks, that company is OREP Insurance, and OREP has been in business for many, many years. They've been my E&O of choice for many years as well. They need to be yours. Check them out. No matter who you're with now, think about what it means to have great coverage when it comes to E&O, because we all make mistakes. Things happen, and we need support. E&O at its best, it's OREP, OREP .org. All right, folks, we are back. We are talking today about the panic, right? The 3.6 panic. And by the way, I want to back up to what I said before the break, because I want to make it clear. I'm not concerned about 3.6. Okay. I'm not thinking about it. Do I understand that it's a big change? Yes. Do we talk about it at the All-Star team all the time? Do we educate each other on what we're doing to prepare for the 3.6? Sure. Am I learning the ins and outs of the 3.6 currently in its present state? The answer is no. And why? Because I'm an efficiency guy. And it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to spend hours and hours learning the 3.6 that may or may not be the same 3.6 that I'm going to actually use in the field. And I know that sounds crazy, but folks, look at the timeline, okay? We started this years ago, and it kept getting paused and pushed back and changed and reiterated and changed again and reiterated. And now we're waiting for the software companies, and all of them we're just around the corner, just next week we should get approved. And folks, I'm sorry, I don't think it's going to be that hard to learn the 3.6. I really don't. I'm pretty good at picking up change and running with it. I just don't think it's going to be a big issue. So I'm not worrying about it right now. Am I preparing for it? Sure. I'm preparing for it as much as my brain is saying, okay, it's coming. You should be aware. You should take a class. Folks, if you've not taken the 3.6 class, take the damn class. It's boring, but take it. Okay. Maybe you should go into whatever software provider you have and use their educational tool and do a 3.6 on your own house. I've not personally done that yet. I started it. It was boring. I got bored. I moved on, whatever. When the time comes, I'll figure it out. But when it comes to fees, okay, let's talk about this a little bit. First of all, I think we need to just be clear, right? Any change, I don't care how small, is likely going to take you more time while you learn it, right? It's the old adage that you've got to take a step back to take 2 steps forward, right? Any change that I encourage people to make as a coach, for example, when I encourage people to hire a virtual assistant, right? And some of them will push back and they'll say, but Dustin, it's going to take me longer to do this with a virtual assistant, to teach that virtual assistant, than it would to just do it myself. And I want to say, no, duh. Of course it will. in the beginning. The point is, you take a step back, you go through the training, and then moving forward for years to come, that person, that individual is going to save you time on every single report. So, yes, it's going to take more time to learn it in the beginning, to teach someone else in the beginning. This is no different. Do you remember the first UAD rollout? Similar panic, folks. Do you remember the MC form? Holy cow, the sky was falling. This new MC form that sucks and this and that. And then there's other people telling them, well, I do this every day. It just puts it in a form. Do you remember the panic when it came to something as little as the MC form? And now we do it in our sleep. And some of us don't do it at all, right? But it doesn't matter. The point is we learned it, we did it, and it was okay. It was fine, right? Part of me wants to say, folks, yes, this is going to take more time in the beginning. But that doesn't mean it's going to take more time forever. Now, I know some of you are looking at the scope of work of the 3.6 and you're pushing back and you say, Dustin, I don't care how well you learn it. They are asking more. Okay, fine. That may be true. You may forever and ever, even after you learn it and you get it down, you get your processes in place, you may still have this, longer time frame when it comes to 3.6. I'm not saying that's not going to be the truth. It probably will be. Okay? So let's walk through this process because so many of you are jumping on these forums and saying, okay, guys, what's our minimum fee need to be here? Where are we going to set this? Okay. Again, the illegal part aside, we've already talked about that. That's possibly and probably illegal. Let's just put that aside. Folks, you're still going about this the wrong way. Okay. Number one, AMCs do not dictate your fees. You have the power to say no. Okay. Stop staring at the gross fee on the engagement letter. What I want you to do is start to look at this in the framework of dollars per hour. Now, this is going to take a little bit of work to figure out. If I asked you, what are your dollars per hour when you work on an appraisal? I know mine. What are yours? If you don't know, there's a very simple way to figure it out, and it doesn't have to be complicated. You take the gross fee, you time yourself on every aspect of the appraisal, and you divide the two. And then you understand that, okay, I make $50 an hour, I make $200 an hour, I make $500, whatever it is. Folks, here's the thing. If you'll start looking at your fees in a dollars per hour process, then probably with 3.6, your fees are going to rise and they're going to be justified. Okay. You cannot fight the market ceiling. Supply and demand rules. This is marketing 101. Okay. So when you're looking at Southern California with a $300 fee, right? Why is that? Some people will say, well, I do as much work in Southern. In fact, it's harder to do an appraisal in Southern California than it is in Idaho. I'm not saying it's not. I've never done an appraisal in Southern California. I don't know. But folks, you've got high density, easy data. I'm sorry, it's easy data. Okay. But the biggest issue is you've got massive competition. There are literally thousands of appraisers in Southern California, right? That is going to affect your fee. It just is. There's not much you can do about that. In Idaho, the $700 fee is, well, there's huge drive times, okay? Sparse data. It's very difficult to come by. We are a non-disclosure state. There's massive friction, right? But that being said, there's also very little competition. There's not that many appraisers in the state of Idaho. As a consequence, I can demand a higher fee. That's just the way it works, folks. If you don't like your $300 Southern California fee, maybe you should move. I'm sorry. Well, I can't move. My mother lives here and I take care of her. Okay, folks, I'm just telling you that geography is going to affect your fee. It just is. So to jump on these forums and say, well, I think we should all just set our minimum fee at $600 and then we're all good. Folks, again, illegal, yes. Not smart, also yes. Right? Markets can yield the exact same dollars per hour if you look at it in terms of dollars per hour. Okay, so here's the architect move. Accept the market fee, but change your systems. Let me repeat that. We are going about this the wrong way. When I see people on the forums trying to dictate what the market fee is going to be, folks, that's not the smart way to go. The market is the market. So rather than trying to set fees higher, how about control what you can control? And folks, what you can control is how you work, right? Applying the law of delegation, right? We talked about VAs earlier. What about your tech stack? Are you using AI? Are you using the tools that are now available to us to shrink the time it takes to get to the finish line, right? Years ago, when I first started, one of my first blogs, like if you go way, way, way back in the Wayback Machine, right? We're talking probably 2011-ish, 2010 even. I put out a blog that said, "Your fees have not raised in 10 years, BS." I think was the name of the title. And it was a direct affront to people who say, "I haven't had my fees changed in 10 years. They're still the same as they were 10 years ago." And I'm saying, bull crap, because you can do an appraisal faster now than you could 10 years ago. And I went into detail about sitting in line at the 1 hour photo and forms and worms and printing that stuff off and then hand delivering it to the mortgage company, right? I lived through those years, folks. I'm not that old, right? I lived through those years. And with digital photos and PDFs and ENV delivery and all of this other stuff, folks, it was so much easier to get to the finish line, right? So a $300 fee 10 years later is not a $300 fee unless you're looking at it in black and white and on the engagement letter. That's the wrong way to look at it. The right way to look at it is, what can I do to make my life more efficient? What can I use to use the law of delegation, the systems, the SOPs, the tech stack, the stuff that I teach as a coach, right? So that you can do a 10-hour appraisal in 5 hours. You can do a 5-hour appraisal in 2 hours. You can do a 2-hour appraisal in 30 minutes, right? So folks, log off the Facebook echo chamber, right? Sorry for those of you who run those groups. I'm not trying to deplete what you've got going out there, but they're just a cesspool, right? Find your baseline cost. Track your actual time per file. Folks, be the CEO of your appraisal business. Don't collude. When people ask me, "Are you raising your fees with a 3.6?" my answer is, I don't know. I haven't done the work yet. I haven't even done a 3.6. I don't know how much time it's going to take me, but probably going to change. But I also need to work within the confines of what the market will bear. We all do. Thank you for joining me today, folks. By the way, if you want to be a part of a real discussion group, a group that is not a cesspool, a group that is actually there to help one another talk through this process, get SOPs out there, tech stack, right, that will allow you to be able to we're implementing AI tools all of the time, and they're free, right? I just create them, or a member of the community creates them, and we put them on the GitHub. And people can download them, and they can do whatever the hell they want with them. It's open source, and it's all through the All-Star team. Learn more by going to my website, theappraisercoach.com. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.